Hello, family. I am sitting at the top of a mountain right now in the middle of the forest, and yet there is still so much construction noises all around, and I'm not using my really good mic today, so hopefully the quality is okay. I want to touch on this idea that's been really prominent for me, and it's this idea, and it connects again, like my last few episodes have, to this shift in grids that we are experiencing. Meaning the shift in paradigms, the shift in the energetics of the quantum realities that we live in. And, we hear a lot about service to self versus service to others, or lack versus abundance, and 3D versus 5D, and these kind of all interplay and interweave with this topic. But what I want to touch on here is this underlying feeling a lot of times that we can get from our minds, that we need to be doing more, that we should be, or we ought to be, or we're supposed to be doing more, or we're supposed to be doing something different, or we're supposed to be helping more people, or whatever the narrative is. At this time, we're really feeling a big transformation on an energetic level. As you can see, even on the surface, looking at our world, how many things are shifting. And maybe you've been feeling this yourself internally, this feeling of kind of like an urgency. And one of the reasons for that is because time is in fact collapsing. And so it kind of feels like there's this rush to get somewhere, or this almost pull to finish things up and, have this sense of stability as we move into these kind of tumultuous times. And not only are we feeling that ourselves, but because the veils are getting thinner between dimensions, that also means that the veils are thinning between us as individuals and the collective, which means that we're feeling the energies, the emotions, the suffering, the experiences that all of the other people on this planet are going through. And, maybe that's subtle for some people, maybe that's very intense for others, especially if you're working a lot with detoxing and cleansing and opening your energy fields. We can oftentimes become very sensitive on this path as we awaken, and that means that we can tend to feel a lot of things from others. So if you are experiencing this feeling of urgency, and maybe that comes through for you in a way that feels like it does for me, which is this like time pressure, almost like I'm in a pressure cooker and there's just so much happening in my mind and my body, and it feels like there's just sometimes not enough hours in the day to be able to do all the things that I want to do or help in the ways that I want to help. And my mind oftentimes has come into that and created this narrative that I just need to be doing more, that there's so much suffering and so much chaos on the planet that I just need to be showing up more for people. I need to be doing more. I need to, have more offerings and have more clients. And it's just this kind of very similar feeling that we get in the Matrix of this rat race feeling, right? Like this hamster wheel of like going, hustle and grind and do all the things. And at the root of that is this feeling of lack, this feeling of, I'm lacking time, or this projection that other people are lacking and suffering in some way, so I need to fix or save. And this message that keeps coming through for me personally, and maybe this will resonate for you as well, is that what we are being, or the energy that we're emitting and holding at this time, that frequency is the greatest gift that we can give to others and to this planet. Even more so than acting at times. And this, I'm in no way saying don't take action. So I hope that's not misinterpreted. But what I mean is that if you imagine that you're taking action from that energy of lack and scarcity and urgency of I need to do things to save, then that energy of projecting onto others that they are, to be pitied almost, or that there's something wrong, that there's something lacking, that energy is carried into the action and it's sent out in the quantum field. And so as I've been talking a lot about recently, and will continue to, is really starting to look at our world through the lens or the terms of energy. What intention are you sending out through your words, through your actions? Are you acting from a place of needing to save somebody, which is projecting scarcity onto them and not actually supporting in the way that we might want to? Or are we taking a little bit more time, even in that space of urgency, to maybe come back to ourselves, to meditate, to get back into our hearts and remember that everything is abundant, even when we perceive that something is lacking? That's a misconception, and that comes from within us. And so when we can turn inwards, when we feel that sense of lack, when we notice ourselves feeling anxious or upset or whatever it may be, that's just a cue for us to go back inside ourselves, into meditation or into nature, maybe in stillness, and to really reflect on what it is that is causing you to perceive that sense of lack in yourself. Because what we're seeing collectively right now as a whole on our planet can be perceived as suffering and as lack and as something wrong. But that echo of what is happening in the external is an echo of our past as a collective. So all of the ways that we have perceived as a humanity, as a society in the world, has created what is happening in the physical. What we're seeing in form is always an echo of the past. And so if we want to create a new future that looks different than what we're seeing, it's actually more conducive for us to go within and change our own perception to a place where we can experience inner abundance and then act and speak and move from that place. So when people at this time are saying, the work is within and it's time for us to go internal, and that's not just something fun to say, that's really the truth. And of course there's the balance where it is important for us to recognize what's happening in the external as well, right? We want to be able to not be completely ignorant and not just allow things to go unchecked, right? That's also important. But for me, as an individual, and this is, again, there's roles for each of us, and this really takes being honest with ourselves about what is calling to you as your essence, as your soul, not your ego, but moving beyond that and saying, what is my role in this shift? Am I one of the people who is disclosing information? Am I one of the people who is anchoring light? Am I one of the people who's working with the grid of the earth? Am I one of the people who is an activist? Am I speaking out for trafficking? We all have different roles. And when we partake in things like social media, one of the challenges, and there are a lot of beautiful aspects of social media, being able to reach so many more people, being able to touch the hearts and souls of so many. And also, it's good to be aware that when we go on social media, when we open an app, we are immediately flooded with the narratives and the perspectives of so many thousands and even millions of individuals who have individual roles. And as humans, it can be very easy when we see people thriving or we hear people's passion in the way that they speak. It can move us, right? It can move us to feel like, I should be doing that too, because I feel their passion. I feel what they're doing and how important it is to them. And that is why right now, more than ever, the most important thing that we have is our resonance. And, I'm working with one of my best friends, Bishop, right now, and we're finishing up this beautiful container, the Sacred Self, which has been 3 weeks of honing in on this inner guidance system. And what that really takes is listening, learning what your compass, that feeling within yourself, feels like. What is your body saying to you? What is your heart saying to you? Because right now, when we go on technology, when we're more sensitive than ever, when the veils are this thin, and we engage in a place where there are so many narratives and belief systems floating through our experience, even, consciously and unconsciously. When you open an app, you're not just scrolling through the pages that you're looking at. You're opening a portal into the entire experience of Instagram that reaches worldwide. So to have this inner compass attuned and to be listening and spending time with ourselves is the absolute most important thing that we can give to ourselves at this time and to the world. So that when we do engage with others, whether it's online or in person, and when we feel people's beliefs, when we feel their passion, we can come back to ourselves and say, how does that feel in my body? What is my resonance with this information? How do I make my choices and decisions based off what I'm feeling as my energy field engages with this information? That's how we are directing ourselves through this life, whether we recognize it or not. We're always being directed. So if you feel like this is a place where you want to dive in even deeper, I encourage you to do whatever it takes for you to get to a place where you have that strong connection with your discernment, with your resonance, with your vibration, with your ability to listen. I recently left my position at the Oshun Collective based on my resonance, and this took me a year to fully decide this. I think that since the day I first joined this group, there was a subtle feeling in my intuition that was telling me that I wouldn't maybe be there long term. And yet I kept prolonging it because I didn't have a mental understanding or a mental reason, not understanding. I didn't have a logical reason to leave. On the surface, looking, from the outside looking in, everything about this experience was perfect. The vision was incredible. I love the people. We just kept diving deeper and deeper as a team. Everything that I could possibly want for support was there. And so I was telling myself these stories of why it was the right thing to stay. And of course, I'm speaking in hindsight because in that moment I was still learning. And so it was, in fact, the right thing for me. And now in hindsight, I'm seeing how long I was not listening to this inner guidance system that was speaking to me through so much resistance in my body, tension, just not feeling excited in the way that I wanted to. And yet I kept combating that with this mental logic, this, analytical mind that we're so used to being in, of saying, nope, here are all the reasons why I should just stay. And, even my spiritual ego of, you just need to work on devotion more. You just need to do more inner work and then it will feel aligned. And so really right now, you guys, our bodies, our resonance, it is everything. And so really figuring out, and not with the mind, figuring out by feeling our way into what our role is in this shift. Because it's different, we each have different roles. And just because somebody else is out there being an activist for all of these different, places in the world that are needing a voice, doesn't mean that that's your role. And it doesn't mean that one person's wrong to make us right or vice versa. It's just about noticing where we're feeling a pull. Where are we feeling our voice is needed? And trusting that pull of what is calling to you is there for a reason. It's not for nothing, we wouldn't be given these feelings, these emotions for nothing. Our emotions and that feeling of tension or that feeling of expansion, those little nudges, all of those little whispers from the universe are here as an internal compass and guidance system to help us in moments when the external can feel chaotic. When what we used to base everything off of, this external world, seems to start crumbling, and the systems that we bought into, the authorities that we were following, the people that we placed on pedestals, when those things are no longer making sense to our minds, this is a beautiful gift, because it's time for us to surrender our minds to our hearts and to our bodies, to our gut, to this intuition that we are born with, that is always speaking to us. And so I bring this up because I've been contemplating this a lot in myself, of noticing that when I get off of social media for a bit, I feel this recalibration to what my role is, and I feel this strong inner knowing in my body, this confidence. And I am a very, very, very sensitive person. I actually call myself a shapeshifter often, because one of my gifts in this life is to completely morph into my environment and into the people around me. And it's something that I use in my own offerings as well. But it can also be a really big challenge, right? Because when I get on social media, I can feel so viscerally other people's passions, other people's narratives, other people's beliefs, so much so that I can lose myself in them. And sometimes losing myself in another is one of my gifts and something I'm grateful for. And other times with social media, I can find myself feeling pretty confused at times if I spend too much time on screens. And that's because I feel the way people speak about their roles. I feel it so deeply. It's as if I'm feeling it like for myself. It's as if I'm feeling my role as what they're speaking of. And I'm finally beginning to find the discernment there of these subtleties. And it really takes getting off of screens for me. Coming back to myself, coming back to my own stillness, my own energy, moving away from social media often and not feeling guilty for doing that, not telling myself a story that, oh, I'm not going to be successful or I can't build my business because of, not being on screens as much. It's interesting how when I get off social media for a week or a month, I actually am more successful in almost every single way. And this is something that I'm feeling so passionate about speaking on more to people, is that we don't need to be on our screens to be successful in business. And the old paradigm, even the spiritual old paradigm, is very geared towards this mentality that's still linked to this feeling that we have to show up a certain amount of days, we have to meet the algorithm, we have to do all these things. Your energy, your focus, your frequency is the real algorithm in this universe. And we're going to become very, very, very aware of that over the upcoming years. It's already happening. I guarantee you, if you take a day or a week off of social media, just notice what shifts. I encourage you to do a week. Challenge yourself a bit. We don't need to be so attached to these devices. And that was actually one of my reasons for feeling like I wanted to step away from my position recently, was like I was feeling this internal resistance towards adding more screen time in. And realizing that if I'm going to be on screens, I want it to be for the things that I am so passionate about and connecting with people. And to have the majority of whatever it is I'm creating through business. And I feel that my energy, my frequency, my original creation is my business. And so my mentality is moving more towards not so much what I do in my business, not so much what I offer in terms of, oh, what am I getting paid for? But what is this offering that I can give through my being? And so every day waking up with this mentality of, let me get into the most abundant space that I can. Not a space where I'm perceiving suffering everywhere. Not a space where I'm looking at the world like I need to save everybody, or I need to preach things because I need to make sure that, other people get on this certain level of awareness. Because that's not serving in the way that I want to serve anymore. I want to serve from a place of being love, of being passionate and abundant. And not abundant in the way of accumulating a lot of things. Maybe that can be a part of it at times, but experiencing abundance as a frequency that can never be taken away from me. And if I wake up and get into that space each day, how can I move into being my business of being love? How can I go throughout my day saying, how can I be more love in this world? How can I offer more love through just my energy? How can I get excited to walk through town today and offer love through not needing to preach it, not needing to offer something that requires somebody to pay me, but how can I just offer that love through the energy that I'm walking with, through the smile that I give to a stranger, through the litter that I pick up off the street? How can I offer love that might never receive recognition or validation? And that's the hardest for our ego to move into. But that's where I'm at right now, is this feeling of wanting to share from that space. And I've really been coming back again and again when I feel this urgency to, disclose information or learn about everything that's happening in the news, and starting to feel this frequency of like resistance and stickiness, and realizing, where is my edge of not being ignorant, but also recognizing that what we're seeing in the collective is an echo of what we have already been thinking, is our past. And if we want to shift, if we want to change this world, if we want to welcome this new paradigm that is here and ready to be birthed, how can I anchor the new? How can I be abundance before I see it reflected back to me? How can I be wealthy before my wallet reflects that? These are the questions that I'm asking myself right now. Because even in the spiritual community, even on this spiritual path, we can get so lost in very, very similar programs that just have a spiritual undertone to them. Instead of grinding and hustling in our 9-to-5, maybe now we're grinding and hustling on screens all day for a spiritual entrepreneurship business. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what I keep coming back to is, what is actually going to feel sustainable to me? Sustainable abundance, not something that relies on how many offerings I have, or how much money I'm receiving, or how many people are watching my videos, or how many psychic faculties I have turned on, or how many chakras are balanced, or what my frequency is at one day to the next. But how can I find peace and love and abundance that relies on nothing other than my internal world? How can I find that feeling inside of myself that doesn't need anything as a prerequisite? And then how can I act and speak and move from that space? Because if I'm moving from that space of feeling love and not needing to save anybody, not needing to fix anybody, not needing to change anybody's beliefs to make me feel comfortable, if I'm moving and living from that space, it's less about how much I'm doing and more about the power that I get to be in that energy. And so this change, this shift that's happening in our world truly does start within. It starts with these questions. It starts with meeting ourselves in the stillness, opening up to what wants to be birthed on this planet as the new. And so how can we unplug from the echoes of our past that we're seeing explode in chaos on the surface of this planet? How can we unplug long enough to center ourselves in the new, so that when we plug into this new feeling within ourselves, and enough of us do that, that we can start to create a new echo on our planet, an echo of a new paradigm that begins in our hearts, that begins beyond the mind. So I will leave it there, and I hope that this reflection finds you guys in a moment that inspires you to maybe do less and just be and see what can come from the powerful essence that you are. And then act from that space and notice how it feels to move from a space where there is nobody to save, but only support with love. If we are perceiving lack, it is because we've perceived lack within ourselves. It can be a hard truth to swallow, but it's the truth. And so if we are perceiving suffering and turmoil and hatred and greed and these things in the external, that's an arrow pointing us back within ourselves. That is our guidance system, our compass, pointing us internally to see where we have made a misconception, a misperception of our internal world that is absolutely, entirely abundant. And that is what wants to be birthed. That is the evolution of this human species. That is the grid and the paradigm that is ready to be reflected back to us in form. But we can only really see that new paradigm reflected in form if we stop focusing on what is in front of our eyes. If we can stop focusing on the echoes of our past and focus instead on the energies, the feelings that are bubbling up within us. And that takes stillness. And that takes patience and listening. So I'll leave it there. I love you all. I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful week. And I'll catch you in the next episode.